Sulfonylureas. No doubt, sulfonylureas are the cornerstone in the management of diabetes, or at least one of the cornerstone drugs in the management of diabetes. Whatever new classes of drugs appear, with definitely some additional benefit, with definitely some less side effects, still sulfonylurea hold its place as the cornerstone after metformin as a drug for diabetes control. But during Ramadan, we have some big problems during Ramadan. Is it wise, with the advance of new drugs in the management of diabetes, with the new classes, with the additional benefit of no hypoglycemia or no suspicious of insulin secretion regardless of the meals, is it still wise to use sulfonylurea during Ramadan? This is what I'm going to try to answer in the next 10 or 15 minutes. So what happens in the typical day of Ramadan? In the typical day of Ramadan, all the meals are scrambled in a short time, and throughout the rest of the day, we are fasting, no food. So the main problem here is how to control the blood glucose when we are feasting in a short time, and at the same time, how not to have hypoglycemia while we are fasting for a long time. So it's a balance. To achieve safe fasting, we have to make balance between no hypoglycemia during the day, no severe hyperglycemia or marked hyperglycemia when feasting. So to have a drug, which we can say a favorable drug during Ramadan, it must be first, sustain blood glucose during prolonged fasting. Sustain, I mean no rise or no risk or very low risk of hypoglycemia during the fasting hours. The risk of sulfonylureas during Ramadan. What do you expect? Sulfonylureas are insulin secretagogue. They secrete insulin from the beta cell of the pancreas or release the already stored insulin in the beta cell. So what is the risk of sulfonylureas during Ramadan? Mainly it's hypoglycemia. Insulin secretion when the patient is not eating, and therefore hypoglycemia. But it's very unwise to say that all sulfonylureas are the same. We have sulfonylureas and what is called modern sulfonylureas. This is a guideline for the use or a consensus recommendation for the use of sulfonylureas in general during Ramadan and not during Ramadan in patients with type 2 diabetes. This has been done by a task force from about 13 or 14 countries from the Middle East, Asia, and the Far East. And this task force mainly focus on management of diabetes, particularly in countries like us, countries with limited income. And I have the honor with my dear colleague, Professor Abbas Arabi, to participate in this consensus, which you can get easily from the net and you can download freely. So we divide sulfonylureas into sulfonylureas and modern sulfonylureas. Modern sulfonylureas are two sulfonylureas, glyclazide and glimepiride. They have low incidence of hypoglycemia, better control of the blood glucose, and much less side effects. Let's look at the major diabetic studies, the ACCORD, the United Kingdom prospective study, and the ADVANCE. To remind you, the ADVANCE was done mainly with one drug, which is glyclazide, comparing it with placebo. Placebo means patient receiving whatever drugs other than sulfonylureas plus glyclazide. The other arm receive any other drugs, not including glyclazide. And we can see that the incidence of hypoglycemia is the lowest in the advanced study compared to the United Kingdom prospective study and the Accord study, which uses different sulfonylureas. So we have a modern sulfonylureas with very low incidence of hypoglycemia. If you compare the different sulfonylureas, again, we can find compared to glimepiride, glibenclamide, glipizide, gliclazide has the lowest incidence of hypoglycemia. Among the modern sulfonylureas, the incidence of hypoglycemia is lower with gliclazide than glimepiride. So the main issue of hypoglycemia during Ramadan is partially solved if we use the modern sulfonylureas in general, gliclazide in particular. What is the situation in Ramadan? Evidence-based. This is a study by Arvinda, which shows that all sulfonylureas has some instance of hypoglycemia during Ramadan, 5.4. Sitagliptin, which is DDP4 inhibitor, a drug or a class of drug with definite benefit and advantage of not having hypoglycemia. Compared to sulfonylureas in general, the incidence of hypoglycemia with sitagliptin was much lower. But if we compare sitagliptin with gliclazide, not all sulfonylureas by gliclazide modified release, we find that no significant difference between the two. Even there is a trend of lower incidence of hypoglycemia with gliclazide compared to sitagliptin, a D4 inhibitor. So we cannot say that sulfonylureas are the same. This is a sulfonylurea, a modern sulfonylureas, and this is the package of sulfonylureas as a whole. Saudi Seferi has done an important study comparing D4 inhibitor during Ramadan versus sulfonylureas. And when we see the incidence of hypoglycemia with D4 inhibitor, definitely it's much less than the incidence of hypoglycemia with glibenclamide, even with glimepiride. But when we compare it with gliclazide, the incidence of hypoglycemia was the same during Ramadan for a patient receiving gliclazide and the patient receiving D4 inhibitor. بالعربي D4 inhibitor class of drug يفخر ويتميز بان هو ما يعملش هايبوجليسيميا. فبالتالي في رمضان المتوقع ان الهايبوجليسيميا بتاعته تكون قليله جدا. Sulfonylureas are accused of being drugs which may cause hypoglycemia. فبالتالي كان المتوقع ان الهايبوجليسيميا فيها تبقى اعلى من الهايبوجليسيميا مع الدي 4 انهبيتور. لما جينا نقسم السلفونيليوريز طلع الانسنس اوف هايبوجليسيميا مع الدي 4 انهبيتور versus gliclazide the same. Probably trend to be somewhat less but not significant with gliclazide. يعني ايه؟ يعني modern sulfonylureas, particularly gliclazide, has the same low incidence of hypoglycemia during Ramadan as D4 inhibitor, the drug which is defined as a drug with no hypoglycemia. This provoked an important study, the steadfast. The steadfast study is a comparison between D4 inhibitor, vildagliptin, versus a sulfonylurea, which is gliclazide during Ramadan. أنا كنت يعني أفخر إن أنا كنت واحد من الناس اللي شاركوا في الاستادي دي. ولما كنا بنعمل الاستادي كان عندي اعتراض شديد جدا ان هم يستخدموا الجليكلازايد immediate ريليز، الجليكلازايد القديم مش الجليكلازايد اللي هو موديفايد ريليز. وبالتالي احنا استخدمنا دواء قديم ما استخدمناش الفورمه الجديده الاحسن اللي هي سبورت تو هاف مور بنفيت عن الفورمه القديمه في على الاقل في الكنترول والهايبوجليسيميا. الستادي دي كان المين انفستيجيتور بتاعها الدكتور محمد حسنين والدكتور خليفه عبد الله زميلنا وصديقنا واستاذنا من جامعه اسكندريه. وكان المتوقع ان نلاقي الانسنس هايبوجلايسيميا اعلى كتير من الانسنس بتاعت الهايبوجلايسيميا لما نقارن الدي 4 انهبيتور فيرسس السلفونايل يوريا جليكلازايد immediate release كمان مش متبادل. Surprisingly, patient fasting during Ramadan for mean standard deviation of 28 يوم with vildagliptin جروب و28 يوم 1/10 بالجليكلازايد جروب. يبقى معنى كده الانسنس اوف failing to complete fast is the same، يعني الاثنين الفاستنج كان زي بعض. طيب نشوف بقى السيفتي. weight change كان 1.2 in favor of vildagliptin وما كانش و1.1 in favor of diamacron، وبالتالي ما كانش فيه significant difference. الاثنين قللوا الوزن 1.1 و2 مفيش اي فرق. اوكي. هايبوجلايسيميا دي بقى اللي مهمه. 6% مع الفيلتاجليبتين، 8.7 مع الدايماكرون immediate release again no significant difference. يعني the same instance of hypoglycemia with glyclazide immediate release and the D4 inhibitor. والويت جين ما كانش فيه ويت جين في الاثنين، كان فيه ويت لوس والاثنين زي بعض. ما فيش هايبوجلايسيميا زياده مع الجليكلازايد. الهايبوجلايسيميا اللي كانت مع الجليكلازايد هي الهايبوجلايسيميا اللي مع الدي بي 4 انهبيتور. هفكركم بحاجتين. الاستادي دي كانت سبونسرد بالشركه بتاعه الدي بي 4 انهبيتور، يعني اللي عمل الاستادي واللي ديزاين واللي دفع واللي جاب الادويه واللي عمل البلاسيبو هي الشركه بتاعه الفيلداجليبتين. الجليكلازايد كان كومباريتور دراج، الشركه مالهاش دعوه بحاجه خالص. نمره 2 ان ما كانش حتى ده الفورمه الاحدث الافضل اللي هي بكل المقاييس النتائج بتاعتها احسن، لا ده كان الاميديت ريليس. ده خلى يتعمل ميتا اناليسيس لرمضان فاستنج جليكلازايد فيرسس الدي 4 انهبيتور از هول الديفرنت ستاديز. الاستادي دي كان المين انفستيجيتور بتاعها جان كلود مابانيا، وكان ليا الشرف ان انا اكون انفستيجيتور معاه علي عبد الرحيم، ومعانا الدكتور سعود السفري والهان سيمان من تركيا. الميتا اناليسيس على بعض جليكلازايد فيرسس تي 4 انهبيتور no significant difference in hypoglycemia during Ramadan. The conclusion وانا هقراه زي ما هو مكتوب بالظبط في الاستادي: patient treated with either glyclazide or D4 inhibitor while fasting during Ramadan have similarly low risk of experiencing symptomatic hypoglycemia. Glyclazide is effective and suitable for management of patients with type 2 diabetes. ده خلى الجايد لاينز تتحدث عن ان لا، مساله ان السلفونيل يوريا during رمضان غلط، ده كلام مش مقبول. Although the American Diabetic Association recommends that sulfonylurea be used with caution and individualized during Ramadan, it also needs to be considered that the hypoglycemic potential of different sulfonylurea is not identical. مش كل السلفونيليوريا زي بعض. With new generation secretagogue such as glyclazide by name, often showing a lower incidence both in general type 2 diabetic population and when used during Ramadan. Statement صريحة من الامريكان Diabetes Association. Not all sulfonylurea the same. Glyclazide الانسيدنت الهايبوجلايسيميا بتاعتهم قليلة جدا. في نقطة تانية برضو أحب أذكر بيها. renal impairment. We have a problem of kidney function during Ramadan. وبنخاف دايما من الديهايدريشن وإن يحصل deterioration للكدني functions. لو العيان عنده any degree of kidney impairment, glyclazide does not need dose adjustment. يعني لو عيان ابتدى رمضان والكرياتينين بتاعه نورمال، عالي شويه في نص رمضان او عالي شويتين في اخر رمضان، وهو بيستخدم الجليكلازايد no need for any dose adjustment أو أي change. To summarize, sulfonylureas are not the same. Modern sulfonylureas, glyclazide and glimepiride, has lower incidence of hypoglycemia. Evidence-based glyclazide, in particular during Ramadan, had the lowest incidence of hypoglycemia compared to DDP4 inhibitor, which are a class of drug which have the favorable benefit of not having hypoglycemia. And thank you.